Welcome to Machon Pardes. Please turn off your cell phones. I want to just make a couple of quick announcements, and then Professor Simon will begin his lecture. First of all, I'm reminding everyone that there is no lecture next week. We're skipping next week. We resume again in 2 weeks on January 25th, and then we conclude with the final lecture on February 1st. No lecture next week. We're going to change the structure a little bit, and we're going to ask people to hold their questions till the end, not to interrupt Professor Simon in the middle of his lecture, but rather to wait till the end. We will also repeat the questions for the benefit of all of those who are watching this on live feed, so please bear with us with that. I'd like to ask Pardes students who are here, and anyone else who would like to volunteer is welcome to join as well. When we finish here, we need to put the Beit Midrash back for our learning here tomorrow morning. So we appreciate our Pardes students helping us to do that this evening. Professor Simon is Professor Emeritus at Bar-Ilan University, the Director of the Institute for Biblical Research there. Professor Simon.
תודה רבה. ערב טוב. The name of my lecture today is וילך מנוח אחרי אשתו. And Manoah followed his wife. And I have to make an introduction of some 30 minutes about the status of women in biblical society. Because without this background, we cannot really appreciate the meaning of this wonderful story. My students claim that I say about every biblical story that it is wonderful. This is true. But I don't say it about all biblical stories, only about all those which I really can appreciate and teach. So this is a very wonderful story. But we'll start with a more abstract explanation of the status of women in biblical society, which is clearly secondary. You realize that secondary is a soft term. It's clearly secondary, legally, socially, and economically. So we have to realize and to understand in a historical perspective that biblical women lived in a very different society than the one in which we live or hope to live. The biblical family is called Bet Av, which means that it is a paternal family. Pater means father. It is called the house of the father because the father is at the head of this family and in the middle of this family, and everybody, all the members of the family are related to him. You say Sarah Eshet Avraham, Sarah the wife of Abraham. You say Yitzchak ben Avraham, and the girls are called Rivka bat Betuel, Rivka the daughter of Betuel. In the Reshimot Yachas, genealogies, I repeat it only because for the sake of our brethren in other rooms. In these lists of names, you have only fathers and no mothers. These are almost strictly names of men and not of women. Because, as I've said last week, the Zachar makes the Zecher, the masculine, the Zachar, Ben Zachar, is the basis for the memory of the family, and he's really crucial for the family. And this is why Hannah, who was barren, you remember the prospective mother of Shmuel, prayed when she made the vow. She prayed, "V'natata la'amatcha zera anashim." Please give your maidservant a male son. She didn't want only to be fertile, she wanted to have the real thing, which is a son. Don't laugh, this is the reality of a biblical family. Last week I was asked why we don't know the name of Bat Yiftach, the daughter of Yiftach, and we don't know either the name of the mother of Shimshon. And we call her, or the narrator calls her Eshet Manoah. And there was a very important biblical scholar and very important rabbi in Yerushalayim who passed away a couple of years ago, Harav Mordechai Breuer. And he had a very strong sense of humor. And he persistently, all the lecture or all the lesson when he taught this chapter, would call Manoah Ba'ala shel Eshet Manoah. If you laugh at the right point, why should I trouble with the English? But let's translate jokes. People appreciate jokes, right? It's a wonderful joke. He would call the father of Shimshon the husband of the wife of Manoah. You see how few people laugh? You made wrong assumptions about this Landmannschaft. Anyway, this is a fact, that there is an anonymity in the Bible, by which I mean there are heroes whose names are not given, kings whose names are not given. It says the king and doesn't give his name. But the number of anonymous women is 10 times bigger than the number of anonymous masculines. An American scholar, a woman, a biblical scholar, examined what is the number of masculine names in the concordance. She didn't count the people with the same name, but she counted only names. So she found 1,426 male names. And please guess how many male names of women she found there. Only 111, which is less than 10%. Which means that if you want to give a name to a boy or a girl, a biblical name, you have a big variety of big choice for boys and a very small choice for girls. Archaeologists found from the last 50 years of the state of Yehuda, of Judea, a bulla, I don't know how you say, bulla is Latin and it means the imprint, the seal, the imprint of a seal, not the seal itself, but the imprint in clay. This is called a bulla. And there was found a bulla which said, Le'adonit eshet pashchur, which says to the lady, wife of Pashchur. She would sign with her seal, but she didn't. Her name is not given on this bulla, only the name of her husband. Adonit. She was a very important lady. She had a seal, but she didn't find it proper, or it was not expected from her to give her name, but only her belonging. Now, in the last chapter of Vayikra, we have a table of values. If a man makes a vow and he says, I vow the value of my son, or I vow the value of my father, to the temple. So the Torah gives us a list. What does it mean in shekels? And usually the value of a man is twice as much, twice to two-thirds, or the value of a woman is half or two-thirds of the value of a man. For instance, if they, about an infant, from 1 month to 1 year, it's nice, you see a little grandson and you make a vow to the temple, I give his value in shekels. So the Torah says, if he's male, his value is 5 shekels. And if it's a girl, it's only 3 shekels. Between 5 years and 20 years, it is even half, 20 shekels for a boy or for a man, and 10 shekels for a woman. So you see, this is only, not only financially, it really means her value in society. Now, women could not inherit land, not from their father and not from their husband. They couldn't own land, actually. And they were supposed to be sustained by their fathers when they were young and by their husbands when they were married, and owe to them, oy vavoy, how do you say? Oy vavoy, if they were widowed. Because a widow is really a woman without help in biblical society. If she doesn't have faithful sons who will take care of her, she is ger, yatom, v'almana, the people without a social status. She is like a stranger and like an orphan, and she is the widow. So the society has to take care of her, and the Torah warns us not to subvert the rights of ger, yatom, v'almana, because they're very vulnerable. So her security was actually, she was secured only by a male son. This was she could rely on kabed avicha v'et imecha, she could rely on her son's goodwill, but as a widow, her status in society was very, very vulnerable. Now, it's very important to now, since the father is the center of the family, first I want to make it very clear that women are equal before the biblical law. In other words, it's clearly that what is forbidden for men is forbidden for women, that there is no difference if you murder a woman or you murder a man, which is not self-understood in the ancient Near East. The punishments are the same. Everything which is forbidden for men is forbidden for women. There are only differences in mitzvot aseh, in positive commandments, but they don't have equal rights. They are equal before the law, but they don't have equal rights. Not only that she cannot own land, if she makes a vow to God, her husband, or later her father, or later her husband, have the right, during the first 24 hours after they heard what she has vowed, they can annul her vow. I believe because of the importance of harmony in the family. In our family you eat meat, so please, women have to, or the wife has to comply to the norms of her husband. And if she is overly in excess of religiosity, he suffers from her vows. So he has the right to annul her vow. Now the great, great question is, which you should ask yourself while I'm talking, and if you haven't done so, I will formulate the question. Is this secondary status a matter of essence or a matter of sociology? In other words, does the Bible let us understand that women are really essentially inferior which means they don't inherit because you cannot rely on them in financial matters, and be careful not to give them a checkbook because they will waste, on dresses in an irrational way. This is an essentialist attitude. If this is what the Torah tells us about women, or that it is merely an outcome of the patriarchal structure of biblical family. In this structure, she is secondary, but in a different structure of family, she could be equal. This is a very important question which we should ask, and not in an apologetic attitude. We want to know the truth. I at least want to know the truth. We are obliged to know the truth. Now, the very laws which tell us that she cannot inherit and that her vows can be annulled give us the answer